Welcome, the Lord's chosen. The most revealing tests are never announced. They're disguised as ordinary moments. No one told you that your kindness was being audited. There was no memo, no warning, no formal evaluation. You were simply placed into situations where you could have hardened, retaliated, withdrawn, or played the same small games everyone else plays. Instead, you stayed measured, and while it felt unnoticed, it wasn't, not even close. Here's a quiet fact most people don't like to hear. In high-level circles, kindness isn't interpreted the way it is in motivational speeches. It's treated as a stress test, not to see how nice you are, but to see how much control you have over yourself when you don't have to be decent. Studies in leadership psychology consistently show that individuals who remain fair and composed under social pressure are more likely to be trusted with influence than those who assert dominance early. Power is not handed to the loud. It's reserved for the stable. What makes this uncomfortable, and slightly funny if we're honest, is that while you thought you were just being human, others were busy exposing themselves. One person took advantage. Another mistook calm for permission. Someone else tried to provoke you, expecting a reaction like it was a vending machine. You didn't react, and without realizing it, they all submitted their resumes. This is where the misunderstanding lives. Kindness isn't a halo. It's a filter. When you don't rush to punish, explain, or prove anything, people reveal their motives on their own. You don't have to interrogate them. They do the work for you, enthusiastically. The irony is brutal. The very trait you were told would make you easy to dismiss is the one that quietly unlocked access. Because anyone can be aggressive, anyone can posture, but sustained composure, restraint without fear, a calm presence that doesn't beg for respect, that's rare, that's expensive, and that's exactly why it gets noticed. So if you ever wondered why doors started opening differently, why certain people began watching you more carefully, or why your presence suddenly carried weight without effort, this is why. Your kindness wasn't a weakness, it was a test. And while you were busy minding your character, someone was handing you the master key. Number 1. Your kindness exposed who thinks in transactions and who thinks in principles. Most people don't operate on values. They operate on exchange rates. They give attention expecting loyalty. They show respect expecting obedience. They help, but only long enough to secure a return. That's not evil, it's common. What's rare is offering kindness without quietly opening a mental ledger. And the moment you did that, you split the room without saying a word. Transactional thinkers felt uncomfortable around you. They kept waiting for the invoice. They replayed your actions in their heads, trying to figure out what you wanted, because in their world, nobody gives without an angle. Your calm generosity didn't inspire gratitude. It triggered suspicion. They started acting guarded, overly nice, or strangely distant. That wasn't confusion. That was exposure. Principle-driven people reacted differently. They didn't rush to repay you or perform loyalty. They stayed steady. They respected the act without trying to own it. They understood that some people move from an internal code, not from negotiation. And those people recognized you instantly, the same way experienced swimmers recognize someone who doesn't panic in deep water. This distinction matters because transactions create dependency, but principles create trust. When kindness is used as a currency, it runs out. When it comes from values, it compounds quietly. You showed which camp you belonged to, and without realizing it, you forced everyone else to reveal theirs. Some leaned in. Others started testing boundaries. A few tried to exploit the moment, assuming generosity meant flexibility. That assumption always tells on itself. What made this powerful wasn't the kindness itself. It was the consistency. One-off generosity can be performative. Steady decency under no obligation is not. It tells people you don't need leverage to act right. You don't need praise to stay balanced. And that scares anyone whose entire identity is built on keeping score. Here's the part most people miss. This wasn't about morality. It was about orientation. You showed you weren't wired to bargain with your character. And in environments where influence actually matters, that trait is quietly prioritized. Not because it looks good, but because it's predictable under pressure. So while others were busy calculating gains, you were unconsciously sorting the room. And the truth is simple and unsettling. Once people reveal how they think, they can never hide it again. Number 2, you proved you could hold power without announcing it. Most people announce power the moment they get a taste of it. They raise their voice, tighten their posture, start correcting others, or suddenly need to be seen as the one in charge. It's not confidence. It's insecurity trying to lock the door before someone questions the key. You didn't do that. And that silence, not the loud kind you asked me to avoid, but the absence of performance, told a deeper story. You showed control without needing witnesses. You didn't rush to dominate conversations or turn every moment into proof of intelligence. You let things unfold. That alone set you apart, because people who actually understand influence know it doesn't need constant reinforcement. Power that has to announce itself is already unstable. What unsettled others was how comfortable you were not taking up unnecessary space. You didn't interrupt to assert relevance. You didn't correct people just to feel superior. You allowed room for others to talk themselves into clarity or confusion. That restraint isn't passive. It's deliberate. It signals that you're not afraid of losing attention, because attention isn't your source of authority. Those who rely on noise to feel important started to feel exposed. Your calm presence made their effort look excessive. When someone is relaxed while holding leverage, it changes the temperature of the room. People begin to self-adjust. They slow down. They choose words more carefully, not because you demanded respect, but because something in your demeanor suggested you could walk away without losing ground. This is the kind of power that can't be trained easily. It comes from internal order, from knowing you don't need to win every exchange to win overall. You didn't react to provocation or rush to prove depth. You let patterns reveal themselves over time. That patience is expensive. Very few can afford it, which is why it's noticed by the right eyes. Here's the quiet truth. Announcing power is about control. Holding power without announcing it is about trust in self. You showed that you didn't need to grip the steering wheel tightly to keep the car on the road. And in environments where decisions shape outcomes far beyond the moment, that kind of composure isn't just respected, it's selected. Without posturing, without force, you demonstrated that you could be trusted with more, and that realization lingers long after the room empties. Number 3, you demonstrated emotional surplus in a scarcity-driven world. Most people operate in constant deficit. They measure every action, every word, every gesture against what they might lose. Love becomes a transaction, kindness becomes a risk, and trust becomes a commodity that's rationed like water in a desert. That's the default mode for the majority. They are emotionally bankrupt without even realizing it. Then you arrive moving through the same environment, but carrying something they can't understand. Emotional surplus. You had more than enough patience, more than enough composure, more than enough calm to offer freely, and that immediately set you apart. This isn't about being cheerful or naive. Emotional surplus is not a smile, it's quiet resilience. It's the ability to engage without expectation, to stay composed under subtle attacks, to remain generous even when others are calculating your every move. It's a kind of richness that isn't visible on the surface but is felt instantly by everyone around you. People who are emotionally starved notice it immediately. They sense it like a shadow they can't reach, and that awareness alone shifts the dynamic in the room. Those operating in scarcity start to behave differently. They become anxious, defensive, or manipulative. They try to test your boundaries because they don't believe anyone could consistently operate from abundance. The irony is brutal. Your calm generosity exposes them. Without aggression or force, you make their smallness visible. And once they realize it, they can't unsee it. The truth is, emotional surplus is rare because it requires internal mastery. You have to be comfortable with your own limits, secure in your own identity, and capable of acting independently of immediate gains. Most people are too dependent on validation, too quick to react, too caught up in the fear of loss. That's why your presence didn't just make a difference. It reshaped expectations. You didn't just survive the scarcity-driven world. You quietly dominated it. And the subtle brilliance of it is this. While others scramble to protect what little they have, you move freely, unconcerned, already holding the invisible advantage that only those with surplus possess. It's magnetic, it's unsettling, and it's exactly what makes the right observers take notice. Number 4, you resisted the social pressure to harden into cruelty. The world is built to reward sharp edges. People who bite first, who judge quickly, who weaponize fear and sarcasm are celebrated because they seem decisive, efficient, unstoppable. The expectation is simple. To survive, you must harden. Softness is a liability. Vulnerability is weakness. Most people give in without realizing it. They start carrying their own cynicism as armor, sharpening their words as a shield, and measuring everyone by how easily they can be exploited. You didn't. By staying kind and measured, you became an anomaly. You refused to absorb bitterness just because it was convenient or expected. You didn't harden into cruelty to fit a system designed for the selfish. That resistance isn't naivety, it's strength. It's a refusal to let the world dictate your internal climate. You didn't just defy social pressure, you redefined the rules for yourself. That makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability is power in a world that relies on predictability. People noticed. Some were confused. Others were irritated. Those used to manipulating weaknesses found none. Your consistency forced them to recalibrate. They realized you weren't playing the same game they were. You weren't reactive. You weren't performing aggression to prove competence or protect ego. You simply remained human while others resorted to defense mechanisms that made them appear cruel without courage. The subtle brilliance of resisting hardening is that it exposes others' limits. It highlights who relies on aggression to command respect and who can function with integrity under pressure. In doing so, you create a silent hierarchy without raising your voice or asserting dominance. You demonstrate control over your impulses in a way that power-hungry observers can't ignore. Here's the core truth. Resisting the urge to harden is rare because it's uncomfortable. Most people choose the easy path. Armor, sarcasm, contempt. You chose the difficult path, maintaining character when there's no immediate reward, when subtle attacks test patience, and when societal norms demand hardness. That choice doesn't just make you resilient, it makes you magnetic, quietly commanding attention, and it leaves observers instinctively recognizing that someone who can stay humane in a ruthless environment is not only rare, they are essential. Number 5. You showed restraint where most people seek revenge. Revenge is easy, it's primitive, satisfying in the moment and universally understood. Most people act on it without thinking. They strike back the instant someone crosses them, hoping to regain control or prove strength. It's loud, visible, and predictable. But restraint? That takes something else entirely. That takes awareness, discipline, and a sense of timing that only the rare few cultivate. When you chose not to retaliate, when you held back while others expected an explosion, You did something far more powerful than they realized. Your restraint wasn't weakness, it was quiet strategy. By not reacting, you turned the moment into a mirror for those who tried to provoke you. Their aggression revealed their character. Their impatience exposed their motives. While they were busy seeking instant satisfaction, you were gathering information without moving a muscle. You let them expose themselves over and over, like a slow reveal of the cards they were holding. Every attempt to trigger you became a test they failed without even knowing it. People don't respect everyone who can hold back. They respect the ones who do it without appearing to do it. There's no performance in your control, no posturing. Just a calm, steady presence that signals, I am not at the mercy of impulse. I can choose my actions. I can choose when and how I respond. And in that choice lies authority. Not loud authority, but the kind that shifts dynamics quietly, leaving others guessing, recalculating, and ultimately respecting your invisible influence. Restraint also communicates a kind of independence. You don't need approval or revenge to feel whole. You're not chained to the whims of someone else's actions or the fleeting highs of reactive satisfaction. That makes you unshakable, untouchable in ways that aggression never achieves. While others burn energy on petty scores, you move forward with clarity and control, and the ripple effect is undeniable. In the end, choosing restraint over revenge doesn't just change how people see you. It changes the game itself. You demonstrate that real power isn't about who hits first. It's about who decides, calmly and deliberately, who moves and when. And by mastering that choice, you've silently rewritten the rules everyone else assumed were fixed. Number 6, your kindness revealed you weren't trying to be liked. Most people are chasing approval without even realizing it. Every word they say, every gesture they make, every favor they offer carries a silent price tag. Like me, notice me, don't reject me. It's exhausting to watch and exhausting to be around. That's why your behavior stood out. Your kindness wasn't performative. It didn't seek applause, validation, or a return favor. You weren't playing the social popularity game, and that truth hit harder than any boast or display of superiority ever could. When someone gives with no expectation, it creates a strange tension in others. People are wired to interpret generosity through their own lens. Some assumed you were weak. Others tried to manipulate it. A few, the rare and insightful ones, immediately recognized your autonomy. You were acting on your own code, not their approval. That distinction is subtle, but it's seismic. It separates people who are externally motivated from those who are self-contained, and self-contained people rarely get exposed or controlled. Your actions forced a silent recalibration. People realized that no amount of flattery, pressure, or social maneuvering would bend you. They couldn't earn your approval because it wasn't theirs to earn. You weren't transactional, you weren't performative, and you weren't fragile. You moved with an internal compass, and that independence disrupted expectations. For many, it created discomfort. For the right observers, it sparked admiration. This kind of autonomy is magnetic because it is rare. Most individuals are conditioned to seek affirmation, to signal their goodness, and to adjust themselves constantly based on others' reactions. You didn't. You acted with consistency, with integrity, and with a quiet confidence that didn't need witnesses. That's why people took notice, even if they didn't immediately understand why. Ultimately, your kindness wasn't an invitation. It was a statement. It said, I exist on my terms. I act from my principles. I don't bend to applause or criticism. That revelation is profound because it exposes not just your strength, but the limitations of everyone around you. It's subtle, relentless, and impossible to ignore, and it is exactly what commands respect without a single word. Number 7. You force people to confront their own smallness. Kindness has a strange way of reflecting what others cannot see in themselves. Most people move through life defensively, distracted by ego, fear, or ambition, never stopping to examine the cracks in their own character. When you acted with calm generosity, patience, and integrity, you held up a mirror, one they didn't ask for and one they weren't prepared to face. Your actions didn't just show decency, they highlighted the lack of it in others, and that truth is uncomfortable, even painful. Some people reacted with resentment. They couldn't handle that someone could give without expecting anything in return, or that someone could stay composed without seeking approval. It exposed their limitations, their need to compete, their obsession with validation, their inability to rise above petty calculations. Your mere presence forced a reckoning. Those who relied on manipulation, ego, or hidden agendas suddenly became painfully aware of their own smallness, because it was contrasted against a quiet, unshakable strength. The brilliance of this is that you didn't have to do anything dramatic. You didn't call anyone out or make grand gestures. You simply existed on a level of self-possession and principle that others couldn't fake. That disparity was enough. It created tension without confrontation, discomfort without accusation, and understanding without explanation. People either adjusted themselves, resented silently, or began to respect the unspoken authority you carried. What makes this extraordinary is that most people never experience it. Rarely does someone's character challenge the insecurities of those around them without trying. You demonstrated that influence isn't about showing off power. It's about revealing truths that others are too small to confront themselves. In that process, you reshaped how they see not just you, but their own limitations. By forcing others to confront their own smallness, you did something subtle but seismic. You weren't seeking to dominate or belittle. You simply acted with a consistency and integrity that illuminated the cracks in their armor. And in doing so, you quietly established a position of authority, respect, and influence that no performance or words could replicate. Number 8, you proved you can move without external validation. Most people are addicted to approval without realizing it. They constantly check reactions, wait for nods, or adjust their behavior to fit the expectations of the room. Every action is a performance. Every word a test to see if they are accepted. That's exhausting, not just for them, but for anyone around them. You didn't play that game. You moved through situations anchored in your own internal sense of right and wrong, without seeking applause or reassurance. That alone is rare, and it's unsettling for those who rely on external validation to define themselves. By operating independently of others' opinions, you became unpredictable and unexploitable. People couldn't manipulate your choices with flattery, pressure, or subtle threats, because your motivation came from inside, not from their reactions. That's a kind of freedom most never experience, and it communicates power silently, without theatrics. Observers can sense it immediately. There's a weight to someone who doesn't need permission to act, or confirmation to feel complete. Your independence also exposed those around you. People who rely on approval noticed how futile their attempts to influence or impress you were. Some reacted with discomfort, others with thinly veiled frustration, and a few with grudging respect. In refusing to perform for validation, you forced them to confront their own dependence on external acknowledgement, and that revelation is quietly intimidating. This ability to act without validation also gives clarity and consistency. When you're not swayed by applause or criticism, you make decisions with precision. You aren't pulled off course by noise or emotional manipulation. That makes your influence long-lasting because it's reliable. People begin to trust not your words, but the steadiness behind them. Ultimately, moving without external validation signals autonomy, resilience, and self-possession. It's magnetic because it's rare, unsettling because it exposes others' weaknesses, and powerful because it cannot be bought, negotiated, or coerced. In a world obsessed with reactions, you demonstrated the ultimate form of independence, the kind that commands attention quietly, reshapes dynamics effortlessly, and leaves others recalculating their own place in your orbit. Number 9. You passed the endurance test most don't even know exists. Life rarely tests people with obvious challenges. Most trials are subtle, disguised as routine interactions, repeated annoyances, or invisible pressures that slowly wear down patience and character. The endurance test you passed wasn't flashy. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation or a crisis that everyone notices. It was the quiet, relentless proving ground of consistency under pressure. The kind of test most people don't even recognize until they fail it. You didn't just survive it, you excelled. This test is simple in theory, but brutal in practice. Can you remain composed, generous, and principled when there is nothing to gain and everything to lose? Most people give in quickly. They react impulsively, grow cynical, or adjust themselves to the expectations of others. They chase short-term wins to soothe discomfort. You didn't. You stayed steady while others revealed their weaknesses. That endurance exposed you as someone who doesn't rely on circumstance or applause to dictate behavior. Passing this test also meant observing the world with clarity while remaining unaffected by its noise. You noticed who tried to exploit situations, who acted out of fear or envy, and who crumbled under invisible pressure. Others may have thought they were watching you closely, but in reality, you were quietly collecting data while maintaining an inner calm they couldn't touch. That combination of observation and restraint is rare, and it signals control that goes far beyond surface-level competence. The truth is, endurance is invisible but devastating in its effect. People underestimate it because it doesn't scream or demand attention, yet it reshapes relationships and opportunities. Those who recognize it understand instantly, this person is unshakable, reliable, and impossible to manipulate through conventional tactics. By passing a test most don't even realize exists, you didn't just prove strength. You revealed an almost surgical precision in character. You demonstrated that influence isn't about force or spectacle. It's about surviving the subtle pressures that reveal who can endure, who can lead, and who will ultimately be trusted when stakes are high and the world expects cracks. You passed that quietly, decisively, and with an authority few will ever fully comprehend. Number 10. You signaled long-term thinking in a short-term world. Most people live in the immediate. They chase quick wins, instant approval, fast results, and the fleeting satisfaction of visible achievements. That's the world they know, and it's all they trust. Then there's you. You acted in ways that weren't flashy, dramatic, or designed for immediate reward. Every choice, every gesture, every moment of restraint communicated a focus far beyond what most people could even imagine. You weren't just playing the game of today, you were building the rules for tomorrow. Long-term thinking is rare because it's invisible. People can't always see the subtlety behind delayed action or measured responses, so they mistake patience for passivity or calculated generosity for weakness. But anyone paying attention sees the pattern: consistency under pressure, restraint when provoked, kindness without expectation. These aren't random acts, they're investments. And while others were busy reacting, chasing applause, or securing short-term gains, you were quietly creating leverage that compounds over time. This kind of foresight unsettles people who only operate in the short term. They don't understand why you don't need immediate validation, or why you don't react to provocation the way they expect. Your calm signals that you're playing a different game, one where the board is measured in months and years, not minutes and hours. That subtle difference changes how people treat you. Some become uneasy, realizing their tactics won't land. Others start to respect the patience and precision you carry, even if they can't articulate why. The genius of long-term thinking is that it isn't visible until it's undeniable. By consistently operating from principle, acting with restraint, and staying composed without needing applause, you create an influence that silently grows. People who notice it can't help but take it seriously. Your actions demonstrate that real impact doesn't rely on immediate gratification or visible recognition. It relies on foresight, consistency, and the courage to act beyond the horizon. In a world obsessed with speed, your ability to think long-term signals power, stability, and rare intelligence. It's quiet, it's relentless, and it can't be rushed, bought, or imitated. You showed that real influence is about planting seeds, while everyone else is scrambling for fleeting applause, and eventually the harvest is unmistakable. Number 11. You revealed an internal code that can't be negotiated. Most people live by invisible contracts. They compromise their principles when the price seems high, bend under pressure, or adjust their values to fit circumstances. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's everywhere. What makes you stand apart is that you operated by an internal code that doesn't bend, doesn't compromise, and doesn't negotiate. Your actions weren't random or reactive. They were guided by a consistent, unspoken standard that no one could sway, manipulate, or exploit. That consistency is powerful because it creates predictability in a world built on chaos. People who rely on manipulation, deceit, or leverage immediately realize they've encountered someone who cannot be moved by conventional tactics. You don't need reminders, applause, or incentives to act with integrity. Your moral and strategic compass is self-contained, and that makes you unshakable. When others see that, it forces a recalibration. They begin to test boundaries only to discover there are none worth testing. The beauty of having a non-negotiable internal code is that it separates the opportunists from the trustworthy. People who attempt to exploit your principles expose themselves instantly because your responses are measured, consistent, and uncompromising. You don't retaliate impulsively, but you also don't allow breaches to go unnoticed. That balance of patience and firmness is rare, and it signals authority without needing announcement. This trait also builds invisible power over time. When your actions consistently reflect your internal code, people learn that you cannot be manipulated, bribed, or coerced. They stop attempting to influence you in ways that fail and begin to respect the limits you've quietly established. That respect isn't superficial. It's earned by observing someone who lives by principles stronger than circumstance, stronger than pressure, and stronger than temptation. Ultimately, revealing an internal code that can't be negotiated is more than integrity. It's strategic. It shows that influence and power don't come from bending, bargaining, or reacting. They come from clarity, consistency, and unshakable self-mastery. You made it clear without words that loyalty to your principles is non-negotiable, and that kind of presence is both rare and impossible to ignore. Number 12, you exposed who would exploit you if given authority. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness, and that misconception is exactly what makes it a lens for truth. When you acted with generosity, patience, and calm restraint, you weren't just being decent. You were revealing the motives of everyone around you. People who rely on manipulation, entitlement, or opportunism can't resist testing boundaries when they sense flexibility. Your behavior became a quiet magnet for those hoping to exploit any perceived advantage, and their reactions told you everything you needed to know. This exposure is subtle but devastatingly effective. Someone may smile, nod, or seem agreeable, but the moment you extend trust or show leniency, their true intentions surface. Some try to overstep, others push for favors, and a few attempt to control situations behind the scenes. While they think they're getting away with opportunism, you're observing, cataloging, and learning. Your restraint doesn't just prevent exploitation, it actively identifies who cannot be trusted with real influence. The brilliance of this is that it doesn't require confrontation. You don't have to call anyone out, argue, or assert dominance. Simply by acting with consistency, fairness, and unshakable composure, you force the hidden agendas of others into the open. People inadvertently reveal their character when they expect you to be pliable, and that insight is more valuable than any conversation or test. It's like a filter that separates the opportunists from the reliable. Recognizing who would exploit you if given authority is a rare form of intelligence. Most people are blind to it until damage is done. You, however, learned it preemptively, turning interactions into information without losing dignity or presence. That knowledge changes everything. It informs who you align with, who you trust, and how you structure relationships and influence. By exposing who would exploit you, you claimed invisible power. You didn't just act, you revealed the truth about everyone else. That's strategic mastery disguised as simple kindness. And once you know who can be trusted and who cannot, you gain the kind of clarity that most people spend their whole lives chasing without ever finding. Number 13. You showed you can remain human without becoming naive. Most people believe that staying kind, patient, and compassionate automatically makes them vulnerable. They think generosity equals gullibility, empathy equals weakness, and calmness equals being easily taken advantage of. You shattered that misconception. You demonstrated that it's possible to retain humanity, grace, decency, and moral clarity, while simultaneously understanding the darker sides of people and situations. You didn't confuse awareness with cynicism, and that balance is rare. Remaining human in a world that rewards aggression is a quiet form of power. You didn't have to prove intelligence or toughness through confrontation, manipulation, or fear. Your compassion was neither a performance nor a tool. It was a reflection of your principles. At the same time, you weren't naive. You noticed hidden motives, subtle manipulations, and the small tests people set without making them your problem. That's what separates ordinary decency from strategic presence. You retained empathy without surrendering leverage, kindness without giving control, and patience without letting yourself be underestimated. This combination unsettles most people. Those who rely on aggression, deceit, or fear to assert themselves find your balance impossible to predict or manipulate. They expect pushback or panic. Instead, they encounter calm clarity. You see, true understanding of human nature doesn't require stoicism or hardness. It requires observation, patience, and integrity. And by practicing it, you became someone whose decisions are respected, whose character cannot be easily exploited, and whose presence quietly influences others. The brilliance of this is that it doesn't make a show. It doesn't need applause, acknowledgement, or validation. Your humanity becomes a lens through which others' intentions, limitations, and capacities are revealed. People recognize it instinctively, even if they can't articulate why. By remaining human without being naive, you achieved what most people never even attempt, a rare kind of strength that is subtle, unshakable, and magnetic. You showed the world that it's possible to act with integrity and awareness simultaneously, and in doing so, you carved a position of influence that no aggression, manipulation, or fleeting power can replicate. Number 14. Your kindness wasn't mercy, it was reconnaissance. Most people mistake kindness for softness. They see it as an emotional gesture, a gentle act, or a moral obligation. You didn't operate that way. Every measure of patience, every deliberate act of generosity, and every calm response was not simply giving, it was observing. While others thought they were benefiting from your goodwill, you were quietly gathering the most valuable currency of all, information. You learned motives, revealed hidden intentions, and mapped the landscape of character without anyone realizing it. Kindness as reconnaissance works because it disarms people. When someone expects defensiveness, criticism, or immediate judgment, your composure and generosity put them off balance. They reveal themselves without knowing it. The subtle tests are built into your actions. Will they take advantage? Will they manipulate? Will they rise to respect the space you've created? Each response tells a story, each reaction provides insight, and each boundary you maintain becomes a measure of character. This isn't manipulation in the obvious sense. You're not coercing anyone or forcing a confession. You're simply allowing human nature to unfold while you remain deliberate, composed, and principled. In doing so, you gather knowledge that most people spend years trying to decode through conversation, confrontation, or observation. Your kindness becomes a silent radar, revealing the architecture of trust, loyalty, and integrity around you. The power of this method is in its subtlety. People believe they are testing you, when in fact they are being tested. They think your patience is mercy, your generosity a gift, and your composure a passive act. In reality, each of these moments is collecting intelligence, building a map of who is reliable, who is opportunistic, and who can be trusted with real influence. By using kindness as reconnaissance, you turned what most see as vulnerability into strategic advantage. You demonstrated that true power isn't always loud, visible, or forceful. Sometimes it's quiet, consistent, and patient. And in that quiet, you gather everything you need to make decisions, build alliances, and navigate the world with clarity that others can never match. Your kindness wasn't mercy. It was mastery disguised as decency. Conclusion: what you've done goes far beyond ordinary kindness. Every act, every pause, every moment of restraint wasn't just a reflection of decency. It was a test, a statement, and a masterclass in self-mastery. You revealed who operates from principles and who operates from transactions. You demonstrated power without noise, patience without weakness, and composure without fear. You moved through a world obsessed with reaction, approval, and short-term gain, while quietly gathering insight, establishing influence, and setting the standard for integrity that others could only measure against. Your kindness became a filter. It exposed motives, revealed weaknesses, and illuminated truths that people spend lifetimes trying to uncover. By remaining human, you kept your morality intact while seeing the world clearly. By acting without expectation, you showed that autonomy, foresight, and internal strength are far more compelling than any performance of power. Each subtle choice, whether it was restraint, generosity, or calm observation, was a strategic move that positioned you ahead of everyone else, silently earning respect, understanding, and influence without a single word of explanation. This is what separates those who are truly set apart from those who merely pretend. It's not loud, it's not performative, it's steady, consistent, and quietly unshakable. And the result is unmistakable. You hold insight, influence, and authority that others spend a lifetime chasing, all while appearing calm, kind, and principled. That is the essence of mastery, disguised as human decency. If this resonates with you, make sure to be part of this journey. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share it with someone who needs to see this. Knowledge like this grows when it's passed on, and your engagement is what keeps the conversation alive. Step into this understanding, own your mastery, and watch the world respond in ways you never expected. Stay blessed always.